Good evening and Assalamu alaikum. On behalf of Muslim Professionals Forum, I would like to welcome all of you, those who are watching online and Facebook Live. Tonight's our discussion organized by the Muslim Professionals Forum on topic institutional racism and Islamophobia. My name is Khaled. I'm the chair of Muslim Professionals Forum. And in 2005, I qualified as a barrister from Honorable Society of Lincoln's Inn. And thereafter, I qualified as a solicitor and then practicing as a solicitor. And I'm the principal of a solicitor practice based in East London. And I'm also a councillor in Redbridge Council, London Borough of Redbridge. Tonight, we will be discussing on institutional racism and Islamophobia with a question: does institutional racism or Islamophobia militates against BAME and Muslim participation in the democratic process? And the questioning, asking, and may find some of the answer tonight, that are Muslim being co-opted by political parties seeking to tick the diversity box, or we making our mark on the public policy? Tonight we have distinguished guests today. So let me just introduce our guest today. Our guest today is Lord Simon Woolley, and he is well known within the media and the BAME communities for his work and his tireless efforts to make this BAME communities voice heard in the mainstream media and in politics. Lord Woolley of Woodford is the founder and the director of Operation Blackfoot, and he was the chair of governments of the United Kingdom Race and Disparity Unit Advisory Group from January 2018 to July 2020. Lord Woolley was knighted in 2019 by Her Majesty Queen Budget's honor list for service to race equality, and he was made a life peer in October 2019. Lord Simon Woolley, most welcome to you tonight and for our discussions. And then we'll also have a good discussion. And also another thing's introduction to Lord Simon Woolley. We are very fortunate that Lord Simon Woolley is one of our patrons as well of Muslim Professional Forum. Now, before we ask our speaker to present his thought and an idea about these issues and share his thought on this matter, let me just give you some introduction about what do we mean by institutional racism and Islamophobia. We all know that in Stephen Lawrence's report published in 1919, the Sir William Macpherson in the UK, in this report, clearly stated what is this institutional racism is. He said that collective failure of an organization to provide an appropriate and professional service to people become of their color, culture, or ethnic origin. It can be seen or detected in procedures, attitude, and behavior which amount to discrimination through unwitting prejudice, ignorance, thoughtlessness, and racist stereotyping, which is disadvantaging minority ethnic people. And after that, this report, there is also a report published by All-Party Parliamentary Group of Muslims on definition of Islamophobia, and it is in definition clearly stated that Islamophobia is rooted in racism and is a type of racism that target expression of Muslimness or perceived Muslimness. This is the background of this tonight discussion. Before I go further, can I just ask our distinguished guest, Lord Simon Woolley, to share his thought? And obviously, she will be talking about 15 minutes about roughly. And those are watching on Facebook Live, you can ask your question to try to pick up some of the questions, and we'll have a good discussion. Thank you for joining us, and over to you, Lord Simon Woolley.
Thank you very much, my brother, and assalamu alaikum to all our viewers and guests for this, what I hope that will be a conversation. I want to begin by thanking my brother, Councillor Khalid Nooni. We've been friends for a long time, and I want to pay tribute to him because I see myself as a disciple of Dr. Martin Luther King, somebody that has fought for most of my adult life for racial and social justice. I'm an activist. I want to fight for equality. I want to fight for our people to fulfill our great ambition. And in that, I recognize other activists. And brother Khalid is a wonderful activist. We talk often, he calls me up, drives me crazy sometimes. He said, Simon, brother, I need you. We need to speak to the Muslim Professionals Forum. I want them to follow in your footsteps. I want them to be brilliant. I want them to serve in high office. And will you help? So how could I say no? How could I say no to such a brother? It's great to be collaborating with you, and particularly at this time. I also want to pay tribute to your organization, the Muslim Professionals Forum. I think it's good that professional Muslims come together to talk to each other, support each other, and look at the big challenges that we have in our society today. Without you coming together, certain things don't get said, and certain people are not held to account. So I want to first and foremost wish you all the strength and wisdom that this organization as individuals need, and particularly to you, my brother Khalid.
Thank you, Lord.
Now to your question. Where are we right now in this time, 2021, after what has been a tumultuous year for Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities, and in this particular conversation, Muslim communities? And how does institutional racism and Islamophobia affect us, both in general, but also in the wide democratic process? These are very, very important questions, and I'm glad that we're having this conversation this evening. Why do I say that? Well, in this past year, we have had two pandemics, COVID-19 and its devastating impact on Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. The other pandemic, of course, has been the death of brutal murder of George Floyd, and then the subsequent Black Lives Matter protests. I think these two pandemics have caused the perfect storm, not just here in the UK, but in the USA and across Europe, and more broadly across the world. And essential to these double pandemic, this perfect storm, has been how are Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities, and in particular Muslims, how are we being treated? Because what COVID-19 has done, specifically, it has laid bare society's uncomfortable truths. So in the days last year, almost a year ago now, March and April, when the pandemic hit hard, every day on our screens, we saw pictures of Black and brown men and women dying in shockingly disproportionately high numbers every single day. And we sat in our homes seeing these pictures, and we said to ourselves, why is it that we are dying in greater numbers than anybody else in this society? Many of us knew loved ones who were dying. Those that worked in the hospitals knew that those in intensive care saw our loved ones in so many great numbers. Some of the heartbreaking statistics have been that in the first wave, 90% of the doctors that died were Black and brown. 65% of those dying in care homes were non-white, African, Asian, Caribbean, and other minorities, particularly those from the Philippines. They accounted for 30%. So the million-dollar question was this: why is it that we were dying in greater numbers? Some of our political detractors, including some of those in the government, said, we are dying because we are inferior, that our DNA is inferior, our immune system is inferior. In effect, they were saying, you're dying because it's your own fault. It's like hitting somebody to the ground and then kicking them. We were already in pain, but then to be told, it's your own fault adds insult to injury. But we knew the facts. We knew the reality. The principal reason why we were dying in greater numbers to any other community was as simple as this. Because of work, housing, and inequality in health meant that the impact of this deadly disease was greater on us. Let me try and break this down. First, jobs. If you were overly exposed to the disease, then you're more likely to catch it. So who was catching the disease in the first wave? Those on low pay who had no choice but to go to work and be overly exposed. Nurses, doctors, security guards, cleaners, frontline workers in shops, bus drivers, security guards. If you had to work because you cannot feed your children in these frontline roles without the protection, you are more likely to catch it. Then, if you have inequality in health because the system doesn't recognize or deal with, for example, diabetes and other ailments that we might have, then once you catch it, you're more likely to be severely ill from it. And the third element is, of course, if you're more likely to be severely ill, then it simply goes to the next level. You're more likely to die from it. So in that first wave, where many tens of thousands of people died, if you were Black, of African descent, you were 4 times more likely to die. 4 times. If you were Bangladeshi, Pakistani, you were 2 and 3 times more likely to die. That was a story that was told back in May last year. And we said to the government, we need a COVID-19 race equality strategy. They ignored us. So fast forward almost a year to the day, and this second wave, where even more people have died. Guess who's top of the list of those dying? Guess. You and I. This time, instead of Africans and Caribbeans being at the top, it's Asians, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, and Indians. Dying in greater number, and the same dynamics apply. Overly exposed, inequality in health, poor housing has meant we've suffered a great deal. So this is the reality about institutional racism. This disease has exposed the fault lines in our society. I heard a minister once, I was in the chamber, and a government minister said to me, Lord Woolley, I'm here to tell you that this disease is a racist disease. It targets African, Asians, Caribbeans. I've never heard something so stupid in all my life. I said to the minister, this disease isn't racist. This disease targets those areas in our society that are unequal. And in those unequal spaces, they are racialized, low pay, 0-hour contracts, poor housing, inequality in health are all aspects that were there before COVID-19. What COVID-19 has done is shone a spotlight and made it worse. Muslims and African Caribbeans, Asians in general, the impact has been devastating. But it demands a response. It demands an acknowledgement and it demands a response. And this is why we need to talk about institutional racism and Islamophobia. Because of course, I remember when we spoke about these inequalities, we were shut down when the Muslim Council of Britain said, our communities are dying in greater numbers. The government said, we are not listening to the Muslim Council of Britain. They're a radical organization. Why would you do that? Why would you not only dismiss the evidence that organizations such as yours and others of saying how the Muslim community is impacted by COVID-19, but then to go a step further and say their lead organization is not an organization that we respect. It's a double hit. Then we had the death of George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement that said, yes, the individual killed George Floyd, but it wasn't just the knee that killed George Floyd, it was the American system. The American system gave a green light for law enforcement officers to use fatal force in how they engage with Black people. George Floyd wasn't the first and he wasn't the last. There have been thousands of African Americans that have died in the hands of the police. And those protesting in the UK said this: if we think that we are a million miles from the institutional murder of Black people in the USA, you are wrong. Furthermore, they said, it's not just the police that is institutional racist. It's our education system, it's our political system, it's our health system, it's our housing system. At every juncture, it is rigged against our people. And from the death of George Floyd, we want action. Reasonable, proportionate, heartfelt. What was the response from the most senior Black, Asian, and minority ethnic politician in the country? She said, Priti Patel, our Home Secretary, that she doesn't agree with Black Lives Matter. She said that they were disgusting, I think was one of her comments, something like that, or that she dismissed them and said that they were rubbish. And there are other government people who made likewise comments. So the movement that has been the biggest and longest in the country ever seen in the UK has been rubbished by senior people in this government who just happen to be Black, Asian, or minority ethnic. Which for me, Brother Khalid, as an activist who has fought for Black men and women to be in positions of power at the highest offices in the land, is heartbreaking. We have campaigned for people who look like Priti Patel to be in office, for them to turn around and say the movements that we belong to are no good. She couldn't have been where she is if we hadn't campaigned for race equality, for people like her to get into positions of power. We didn't campaign for her to be in power, for then her to rubbish everything that we are fighting for. It's heartbreaking. But look, I want to be on a positive. And on that positive note, that we must say to ourselves, we have to inspire and encourage a new generation of activists and politicians and lawyers and doctors and school teachers to confront racism, but also aspire in a generation to be brilliant, to be successful. It's a real challenge right now because in education, the gap for our children is going to grow because of COVID-19. So we have to come together. We have to come together and have a plan and ensure that the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. So I'm hoping now in the next 30 minutes or so, Brother Khalid, we can have a conversation and we can bring in others too. But the moment is ours. And I hope that we will seize it in the most fantastic way. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord Simon Woolley, for your wonderful presentation and your introduction. That was a very thought-provoking. And I just wanted to share with you as well in this regard about what we said, that it is racism, institutional racism, is not about just only the politics or community. It's about health, the justice system, is about the housing, the political power, and education, and everything. And I think so. In this regard, when the two of the American activists, mainly Carmichael and Hamilton, wrote about in the Black Power, the politics of liberation, and they mainly clearly mentioned that institutional racism is less perceptible because it's less overt and far subtle in nature. And they also mentioned the racism originates in operation of established and respected forces in society, and thus received far less public condemnation than individual racism. And what we're seeing really over this time, that once something happened about institutional racism, we try to shrug off. We try to avoid the system. We try to avoid those who are claiming about this, the victim of institutional racism. Let's just go about a few discussion about in this regard when it started about the definition of institutional racism by Stephen Lawrence Inquiry, as I said, in 20 years ago. And since Stephen Lawrence inquiry, and obviously Stephen Lawrence's mother, on the 20 years anniversary, she mentioned that a time moved on. It is thought that change the word from racism to diversity, and then diversity doesn't exist anymore. And she also mentioned about the Guardian quoted that Lawrence said some police officers still wear. So in this regard, after 20 years of institutional racism, the definition comes. How do you see this change over the last 20 years in terms of this vicious cycle of racism we are witnessing, especially what he rightly said, that pandemic exposed the inequality exist within our society, sadly?
Well, you know, from that 20th anniversary, that I think that we've made some progress. I think institutions began to look at themselves. But, you know, sometimes you can go 4 steps forward and then 1 back and then another back. And I think that because the death of Stephen Lawrence was a long time ago now, some people were not even born when he was murdered, that we started to believe that we are in a post-racial world, that things are okay now. And of course, 5 years ago, when we had the election of the first African-American president, we fooled ourselves that the world of racism is now behind us. But what we forgot was this. Well, many of us didn't forget, but some chose to forget, that it's very difficult to undo 200 years of the enslavement of Africans, 200 years of colonizing African and Asian countries, and 50 years of 50, 60, 70 years of extreme racism. No dogs, no Irish, no black people. And so undoing nearly 500 years of extreme racism cannot be done in 5 minutes. And it cannot be done, this is the big point about this, Brother Khalid, until you recognize that the global institutions that we see today, the city, our education system, our health system, our housing system, our religion, the national religion, Church of England, are all predicated on institutions that emerged strongly from the discrimination of African and Asian people. So the infrastructure, the culture, the religion was set up to maintain that status quo. And so, yes, you can stop people being rude, but unless you change the system, the DNA in the system, you're not really changing anything. What happened with the Black Lives Matter movement and the COVID-19, it exposed the roots of many of our institutions are built on the inequality, the white supremacy model, that white is good and black is bad. White should be offered greater privilege, black and brown should be offered little or no privilege. You need to understand the structure if you want to change its outcomes. We have this opportunity now, but one, we need to acknowledge that, which means a deep dive into our institutions and have a plan of how we rebuild better. And we have to tell the white people that because we are afforded equality and equity doesn't mean they will be afforded inequality. If we win, it doesn't mean they lose. If we win, it means we all win. But we have to be telling those stories and having those plans.
Well, thank you for this question of this your thought regarding this institutional racism. That is, obviously, it is no way we can say that it will go away because of 200 years of the institutional racism that is developed, and oppression and colonialism developed over the last 200 years. Obviously, right, we can see some visible changes, but why this change is proportionate, considering the demography and also struggle of the Black ethnic minority Asian communities as well. And in terms of these things, I want to mention about this, in terms of our population in this country, 14% of population is non-white, compared with 6.6% of police forces. And in London, where the minority population is 40%, only 14% of officers are from that group. How do you think that, how far the police force now or Metropolitan Police to address this? Because this, yes, understand that they're taking some measures. Do you think it is proportionately going faster to catch with or match with this population?
You know, I did think at some point the police were making headway. I remember when Theresa May was Home Secretary and then Prime Minister, she said that most stop and search by the police towards Black people are illegal. They're stopping Black people too often for no other reason than the color of the skin, not the evidence-led policing, which uses detective work. If you are Black, if you are Asian, Muslim, too many officers would see you as a potential criminal and engage you in that manner. We protested and the police held back, but I think in the last 2 or 3 years, they've gone backwards. So why would Black people, brown people join the police force when they know that it's getting worse, not better? And I'll give you an example, Brother Khalid, on how this police force operated during the pandemic. In those months in May, June, July, when 95% of the country was in lockdown, in closed doors, nobody's on the streets, burglaries are down, everyone's trying to protect themselves. You know what happened to stop and search of African, Asians, and Caribbeans? You know what happened?
Increase.
It increased by 25%.
Yeah.
So nobody's out except going for the walks. The police are driving around, stopping Black people, humiliating them at an astronomical rate. Because if you think about it, it went 25% up when no people are on the streets. These officers must have been driving around thinking, okay, where's the next Black person going for a walk that I can stop? How do we have confidence in our police when they see our children as potential criminals? Now, they don't all do that, but too many do. And it doesn't give us confidence that we can trust them. It doesn't give us the confidence that the police are policing by consent. I work, I'm a board member for an organization called Police Now, and we are recruiting detective officers, and I want them from our community. So I'm trying to change the police force from within and saying to our people, yes, we need to join, but it's not going to be easy. So it's a very tough challenge for someone like me to be encouraging African, Asians, and Caribbeans to join the police force, even though with my hand on the heart, I know that it's an imperfect police force that too often is not great for black people. But I'm hoping that enough will join it, and there'll be pressure from inside and outside to get it to change its ways.
Right, thank you. I just wanted to quickly just touch on this. In 2009, the Trevor Philip, that time he was the chair of UK Equalities. And he doesn't want to use the term of institutional racism. He said that term was incendiary. And he said that it rocks the foundation of the police service and causes widespread anguish in government. In terms of what you just said about that, while everyone at home and some people going out for work, but still in this case, the stubborn SARS has been increased. So how do you distinguish that the culture has been changed? At the same time, you can see that evidence is going in opposite direction. So how can I find the proper balance in this regard?
Well, I think Trevor Phillips on that point was wrong. And I think his views on Muslims have been wrong. And I'm disappointed in some of the things that he has said. But I think, look, that's the way it is. We know that there are detractors about our communities, whether it be black or brown, and Muslim and non-Muslim. We have warriors and disciples who fight for us, but not everybody seems to be on our side. Let me say that.
Yes, but this is very unfortunate, sadly, in certain circumstances. And let me touch another issue on this particular equality issue. Obviously, Lamy report published in 2019, and it's really look into the criminal justice system, how these things has been addressed, and also the situation in the representing also BME prisoners, obviously, and them 35 recommendations. In this one that they just clearly say in there, one of the finding, the 2015 crime survey of England and Wales, 51% of people from BME backgrounds born in England and Wales who were surveyed believe that criminal justice system discriminates against particular groups and individuals. And this also recommended 35 recommendations. And few of the recommendations they said that they recommended the deferred prosecution model, pioneer in Operation Turning Point, should be rolled out for both adult and youth offenders across England and Wales. The key aspect of the model is that it provides intervention before police are entered and rather than after. And also another recommendation was that the judiciary should work with the Her Majesty Court and Tribunal Service to establish system of online feedback on how judges conduct cases. Do you think this government should take this matter seriously? And what is your thought on these two recommendations?
Well, I sat with David Lammy and Keir Starmer, as a matter of fact, on that commission, that review of Black, Asian and minority ethnic in the criminal justice system. And I helped write some of those recommendations. And we said to the government, you should implement them as a matter of urgency. And they've implemented a few, but not enough. I mean, the lack of representation with senior judges is appalling, and senior people throughout the judicial system is appalling. You know, when we did that report, Brother Khalid, in, I think it was 2017, 2018, youth incarceration from Black, Asian and minority ethnic youth was running at 45%. 45% of those incarcerated from young people were from our communities. And that was appalling then. In 2021, 3 years later, that has now gone up to 55%. So when you say, has anything changed? Yes, it's changed, it's got worse. And it's heartbreaking.
Right. This is disappointing, but obviously those are listening in here also. Obviously, this discussion will be recorded live online. We hope that those are listening on this authority, local authority, government ministers and government department, they will take this message seriously. Obviously, we want to see some positive change. Yes, we are disappointed, but we are not complaining. We're just giving some sort of recommendation that government should take this matter seriously, because it is not about that we just bringing this fact because it's established fact. And obviously, people felt that people like you and us, those are working in this field, that they feel the same way. Because as a lawyer myself, we can see as well how the judiciary is composed and how the judiciary represented about Muslim community or BME communities. Obviously,
Correct.
is far, far less than we expected. So anyway, just let's go to the other issue about the Islamophobia.
Yes, please.
Obviously, you know that in March 2020, the Muslim Council of Britain, they filed a complaint for investigation about the Islamophobia within Conservative Party to the Equality and Human Rights Commissions. But unfortunately, they come up with a statement in 12 May 2020 that they're saying that complaint is about Islamophobia in the Conservative Party. We have been given very careful consideration to complaint raised about discrimination and Islamophobia in the Conservative Party. We have concluded, in the light of the decision by the party to institute independent investigation, that it would not proportionate to investigate our own investigation at this stage. We will monitor the preview and requiring the party to review, provide regular update on progress. If we are not satisfied with the progress or how investigation is conducted, we will review our decision and do not rule out of those our legal powers. But obviously, Muslim Council of Britain, the bandit is the facade. Do you think that equality and human rights commission has some blind spot when it comes to the Muslim issue and Islamophobia?
I think it's I don't think it's a blind spot. I think it's a willful blind spot. Let me say that I think in some political quarters that they feel they gain political ground if they attack Muslims. There are some commentators out there that deride Muslims, Muslim communities, and they know that if they do that, they gain political capital from sections of, let me say, racist groups. And so they feed off that. And I would say to all our communities, African, Asian, Caribbean, particularly the non-Muslim communities, that we must stand by our brothers and sisters at this time. We must say to them, your struggle is ours and ours is yours. Because if we don't, today it's Muslims, tomorrow it is Sikhs, or it is Africans and Caribbean Christians. Often our powerful detractors feel that they can target what they see as those without a strong voice. And I find it despicable. I find it painful, but I am resolute in my support for this forum, for the Muslim Council of Britain, for Muslim groups around the country who have made such a positive contribution to our country. And I will not let the detractors get a pass, get a buy. If they attack you, they attack me. Simple. And I think that I would like to see the Labour Party do more. I would like to see all political parties, they're fundamental to come clean and say, look, we have Islamophobes in the party. They must be chucked out. Simple. As they would if they were anti-Semitic. You look at what they say, and then you swap Muslim or Islam for Jewish and Judaism. Just swap the words and see what you would do if they made the same abusive comments to Muslims. They would be gone. It's a critical time for us, and we must stand up and show that we can fight all forms of racism. It's a test for all of us, Brother Khalid. It's a real test. And I don't think that all of our supporters have been strong enough to stand shoulder to shoulder in those that would attack Muslims so viciously.
Yes, I think so. You're right that we are not strong enough. We don't have enough support within ourselves as well. As you said, that some of the within our community, they don't feel that they need to come in the same line of us, of our when you are collectively feeling the same pain, unfortunately. But in terms of this, that obviously, in terms of Islamophobia definition, that defined by the FPG Muslims, Conservative Party, the only party, biggest party, they not recognize these definitions. And how do you see that they can justify about that they are also consider about the equality issue seriously?
Well, I mean, it's what they want to do is to sow division and to make it controversial. And if they can get us arguing amongst ourselves and about definitions, then actually we're not dealing with the issue of discrimination. So they would like this internal struggle rather than get us to be debating that until we have no voice left. But in the meantime, we are not correcting the structures that are racist towards Muslims. And so that, again, unity and unity of purpose has to be key. And we have to, in many ways, Brother Khalid, choose our battles carefully. Because sometimes we get sucked into a cul-de-sac debate, and in doing so, that we are not looking at the bigger picture and fighting for the bigger injustice. So it's a tough one. But I think that first of all, we've got to have that unity of where we're fighting, and then start building coalitions, nurturing talent, nurturing leaders. And then when them leaders emerge from the Muslim community, from the Pakistani, Bangladeshi, and other minority ethnic communities, that we can then say, look, this is not just about your success. Yes, we want you to be successful, but we want you to bring others who look like you too to those decision-making tables, to those arenas of high office. So we want to nurture a new generation of leaders who are good for themselves. That's fine. I like ambitious people, but not naked ambition. And definitely not the ambition that when they get to the top, they start putting the foot on black people's bodies and saying, stay down, stay down, stay down. We cannot have people like that.
Yes, thank you. I think so. One thing is you just said very solidly and clearly that you should have a unity of purpose, and we need to find our feet on the ground and then go in the same voice as it, because without dividing ourselves. I think so. You are just appreciating of the article I recently written that we should be having some sort of unified platform, because we need to support each other. And the BAME for not Muslims, non-Muslims, or Asian or African or Caribbean, we are on the same boat effectively, because once you take these different colors or different connotations, effectively we are on the same disadvantaged group, and the BAME emerging. So I think this is something clearly stated. Just before I go to the next question, I want just to share with our viewers that we also invited some of the guests as well, but they sent their apologies, but I feel that I need to acknowledge these things. We have invited the newly elected Secretary General of Muslim Council of Britain, Zara Mahmood. She sent her apologies. We also invited two of the local MP where I am as a councillor, the Sam Terry MP on West Keating MP. Both sent their apologies, so they expected us to join in the future events. So this is, I think, so for the record, I need to mention.
Can I just say, Brother Khalid, on that last piece that you mentioned about the historic election of Zara Mahmood to the Muslim Council of Britain, it gave me a big smile. And
same to us.
And I think to see that, I spoke to her yesterday, by the way, and congratulated her personally. But I think this is a very, very big step and a very bold step that will inspire many Muslim girls and women to be in positions of power and prestige. And what I hope that the Muslim community, and particularly the Muslim professionals, because you professionals have a particular role to play, that you protect Zahra Mahmood, because her critics will be numerous and they will be fierce and they will be relentless. So she's going to need a group of people that she can speak to and trust and let off a bit of steam. But when they attack her, they attack you and they attack me. And we must be resolute in that approach. I'm sorry that it's a little bit off.
No, that's fine. Thank you. I think it's relevant. I think it's relevant, and thank you very much for this. And we also send our congratulations to her informally, and we appreciate her role, and we congratulate her, and also we are happy to work with her, and very pleased that you also talk to her as well, and also you on the same board. That's very good things. So I think so. You are effectively what I just said. We need your purpose. You're just giving the example as well. Let's do the next question about the Islamophobia within the Labour Party. You know that recently there is a report published by the Labour Muslim Network in November 2020. And then in this report that there's some of the shocking findings of this report. There's nearly half of, mainly 48% of Muslim members and supporters do not have confidence in the Labour Party complaint procedures to deal with Islamophobia effectively. It also report clearly shows that 46% of Muslim members and supporters disagree with the statement that I believe the Labour Party represents the Muslim community effectively, compared to 29% that agree. And also 59% Muslim members supporters do not feel who are represented by the leadership of the Labour Party. The same things are shown recently a report published by the Labour Black Socialist, and they're saying that the current leadership of the Labour Party has shown that it lacks the political will to tackle a culture and systems of anti-Black racism and Islamophobia within the Labour Party. Do you think the Labour Party is serious about those issues, historically as a party of anti-racist party?
Well, it's not as serious as I would like. Let me put it that way. And on Islamophobia, I think that I would like them to be much stronger, much more vocal, and much more decisive about those that spew such negativity from within their ranks. I think this is a test for Keir Starmer. I know him, I like him, but he needs to, I would hope that he would deal with Islamophobia with the same political energy as he has done anti-Semitism. I don't quite see that, if I'm honest.
What we as an activist and you as a Black Lives Matter, because obviously we know that in the last 2015 election, and I think 2015 or 2010, you conducted a survey that 168 of the constitutional position seats, that the result go either way on the basis of the BAME voters. And obviously it is about, I think, the 68% the BAME population, and by and large, and especially Muslim population, supporting the Labour Party. Yep. Do you think the Labour Party should take this message seriously, or just the trying to hide this fact get an easy right to break the and control the red one?
You know, the Labour Party are putting themselves, I think, in a difficult position because they feel that they lost the election because they lost the red wall due to Brexit. And I think in regards to Brexit, they got it wrong. And now it seems to me that rather than convince those voters to embrace diversity, they want to give them a message that, yeah, we're speaking to you, but we're not speaking to others a similar way. I think all the political parties are vying for this northern white working class vote. And I think that's politics. But what saddens me, sometimes they're vying for that vote and at the expense of Black, Asian, and minority ethnic communities. So that's why you hear Priti Patel and others saying, we don't support Black Lives Matters, we support the white working class. Why are you pitting poor Black people, poor Asians, poor Muslims against poor white people? If you're poor, and it needs to be addressed. If you're afforded inequality, it needs to be addressed. Why are you making the proposition that if you support Black people, then you can't support poor white people too? It's divide and rule. I don't like it. We should resist it. And I hope that Labour don't go down that path, because it's a dangerous one to go down. Because once you start pandering to factions that are prejudiced, there are always those organizations that will go much further than you are prepared to go. And so it is a slippery slope to extreme racism and bigotry. I mean, we've seen it in the States with Donald Trump, with his white supremacists. And you think, okay, I've got an audience and I'll feed them hate, I'll feed them lies. And then all of a sudden you have a monster that you can't control, that is full of hatred. We need a message of unity. We need a message of hope that we all can progress and fulfill our potential. Not one of divide and rule, not one of division, Brother Khalid.
Yes, same message coming from you again and again. I think so our leadership should understand these things, because I myself is feeling the same feelings like you feel, that is some reason it seems to me that Labour Party is trying to address this issue. They should have been doing differently. Put it like this way, because the way its approach has been taken, and I think so it will cost Labour Party, because I can see that Muslim community feel seriously about the Islamophobia within the Labour Party. I never feel like this in the last 10 years or 12 years since my involvement with the party's politics, that the Muslim community by and large, now who is Black Labour socialist as well, feel the same way. This is something very serious, and I think the Labour Party should take this matter seriously as well. Let's move to the next question about the political participation, and this is the things we're just focusing today about democratic process.
Right. Yes.
In 2014, there's a publication from some of the members of Parliament, Rainbow about Westminster. There's a book published about the history of BME, MB and Lords and statistics about this. Just to say that Black and Asian minority ethnic BME citizens are underrepresented in the House of Commons. Nevertheless, in the chambers, compositions has become more reflective of the general population as a result of 2005 and 2000 parliamentary elections. And I think so this is quite right. And recently it is since 2019 election. Yes, 19 election is 1 in 10 of 650 MPs elected this year are non-white. 10 are 1 year ago, and 1 in 40 MPs are non-white, according to research by the independent think tank of British Futures. How do you see this development? Because obviously we discuss all this negative stuff since Keith Bass became an MP, and after this time. Well, my understanding is it been changed. And how do you see now at the moment you are also fortunate enough to become a Lord and sitting as a member of House of Lords?
Thank you for that. Look, when we started Operation Black Vote 25 years ago, so our anniversary
1996
this year, 25th anniversary this year. So you come and join the party when we can, hearty. But when we started, there were 4 Black, Asian, and minority ethnic MPs: Keith Bass, Paul Boateng, Diane Abbott, and Bernie Grant, the late Bernie Grant. Now we have over 60. We have the greater numbers because organizations like ours campaigned. Over 10% of all MPs that are in Parliament are through Operation Black Vote, our organization. Hundreds of magistrates, 100 councillors, 3 mayors, including Marvin Rees in Bristol, and we hope Anne Rothery will become the Liverpool mayor from Operation Blackbird. So just because we have all these big questions on inequality doesn't mean we stop nurturing talent to go into political office. I think one of the big things that is a reality and also a disappointment, because we've paved the way for people like Priti Patel and Kemi Badenoch, the sad reality is that when you have black faces in high places, it doesn't mean they're going to represent us. And sometimes they can work against us. Now, that is a sad reality, but it's one which tells us a number of things. One, that when we nurture talent, we must say it's not about you, it's about what you can do for the causes of tackling Islamophobia and racism. And we must reject those black political figures, leaders, who will do us more harm than good. Now, I don't want to mention any names, but that is the reality that we face, my brother. And our question is, can we nurture more professionals from the Muslim Professional Forum and Muslim Council of Britain and within the community to come forth, take their role, and then serve all our communities while still tackling Islamophobia and racism? They are the people that we want in our office. And it's not always easy, because sometimes the political parties are mischievous. What they do is they take a black person, a Muslim, or an Asian, and they put him in office like this, and they say, right, you do as I say. If I want you to rubbish black people, then do it. And some of our people will do it. That's
the sad reality. And I think so, if you look into the shadow cabinet of Labour Party and also the actual cabinet of Conservative Party, it reflects the truth really, because if you see how many members from black ethnic minority community at the moment in shadow cabinet of Keir Starmer, obviously if you contrast with Jeremy Corbyn, the figure is clear. But this is the sad reality as well, and what he said that yes, some of the figures are there, but they are not really talking with the same voice we expect them to discuss.
Well, we
have
the most diverse parliament in history. There's the most diverse cabinet in the government, and yet the articulation from the government seems not to want to confront the harsh realities of race inequality and Islamophobia. My brother, I've got to cook my son some food now. He's looking at me thinking, Dad, where's my dinner?
Okay, all right. We'll be finishing in 5 minutes. We'll be finishing in 5 minutes, okay? The last two questions coming to you. Last two questions coming to you now. Okay, right. In terms of the BME representations and democratic process, do you think that our political parties, major political parties, should consider why there is a sizable percentage of the BME Muslim population that should choose the candidate from that community to reflect that community's aspiration?
Well, look, I'm of the view that they need to have a diverse approach to selections. In some areas that you might have a big population, you might consider a Muslim representation. But also too, if you just go down that path, then you in effect saying that Muslim candidates cannot represent constituencies in non-Muslim areas. And I don't think that's true either. So you need a diverse approach to it. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But what you need to do above all is to make sure that you've got a good number of Muslims, men and women, that are in winnable seats, and that they clearly are multi-talents, because nobody wants to be a Muslim candidate and they only see him as there because they're Muslim, and that's all they're ever going to do is tackle issues for Muslims. So you want the diversity of the individual thought. You want the diversity spread across different constituencies, including those where you've got big concentrations, but also no concentration at all. And you need to have a plan to do it. You need to nurture talent like we do with our leadership programs. that you find smart individuals and you take them on a journey, and they will then go into high office. Last question.
Last question, yes. Last question is about your journey. I just come to about you now. You started Operation Blackpool in 1996. And then since your journey started, you take the struggle far away. And obviously, you also become successful and also now a member of House of Lords. How do you see your journey, and what is the advice to those that are expecting to come to political
well, here's the thing. Is the point, Brother Khalid. For 24 years, I had no thank you at all. And I was fine with that. When you're an activist, you don't do it for yourself. You do it for your people, you do it for society. That should be your starting point. If I was awarded nothing at all, I would be fine by that, because I think that my life's been worthwhile. I've helped with others transform political parties, transform our institutions, and transform the debate. That's your prize. The fact that in 2019, I was awarded a knighthood and then elevated to the House of Lords is a bonus beyond my wildest dreams. But here's the thing about this too, that I know as a parliamentarian now, that given this position, I have to speak louder. I have to be hopefully a beacon of hope and nurture people, new people to come forward. So it's almost, Brother Khalid, I feel more responsibility now to be a bigger, stronger voice. But above all, because I have friends like you, I feel humble. You know, you call me up, you have my mobile phone, and you call me up and say, Brother Simon, and you know, you've always called me Simon, never, and which I demand, because you're a good friend, and you speak to me like you do your neighbor, or you know, just as a friend. And I think if you have good people that keep you honest, keep you grounded, then I think that you can continue being a help to society. So that's why when you said, listen, Simon, take an hour out of your weekend to speak with the Muslim Professional Forum, I said, of course, brother, of course. And now we will do it. Hope we will have this conversation again.
Thank you very much, Lord Simon Woolley, for your wonderful presentations and also your thoughtful discussion and sharing your experience and ideas. And we are very pleased to have you tonight, our discussion, and we have a discussion continue. Those are watching on Facebook Live, I would like to thank you for your taking your time, and obviously hope that you enjoy the discussion. If you have any questions, you can please continue to share your question to online on Facebook Live, and then obviously try to address some of the issues in the future as well. And finally, and we try our best to address much of the issue we can within the limited time, but it was difficult to address all this issue we also expected. So hope that we can come back next time and discuss something else as well along this line. So until this time, have a lovely evening. Assalamu alaikum.